Perfect. So I think we're now officially broadcasting. So to the panelists, thank you all again very much for making the time to do this. We certainly appreciate it. We're quite fortunate to have a group of awesome alumni like yourselves. If you guys could just go through and introduce yourselves, tell us, what your current title is, if you did a second major on campus, if you did a minor, and then what other on-campus activities you were involved in when you were a student.
Perfect. Sounds great. I can kick it off. My name is Kate Vandersloot, and I graduated from Rochester in 2017. I'm currently the support operations manager at Ombra Health out in their Denver office. They're headquartered in New York. And in terms of my involvement on campus at Rochester, first I double majored. I did business and public health with a concentration in health policy. And I was also on the cross country and track teams and part of Delta Gamma. Nice to meet you
all. I'll go next. I'm Pete Martin. I graduated in December of 2017, class of 2018, as a business major. I had a computer science minor as well. And currently I'm living in New York City, working for a small proprietary trading firm called Vector Capital, and running the natural gas liquids trading desk. And I was also on the soccer team at U of R.
So I'll go. My name's Alyssa Flashner. I'm currently an associate product manager at a healthcare manufacturing company called Oliver Healthcare Packaging in Philadelphia. I also graduated in the class of 2018. I was a business and chemistry double major. I was an RA on campus and a TA and was in Kappa Delta sorority.
Right, it's my turn. My name is Shrai Dudson. I graduated in 2018 as a double major in business, and I made my second major with interdisciplinary department. It's called Music in the Digital Age. And right after graduate, I pursued my grad school at USC, with a grad school focusing music industry. And now I'm a manager of a jazz orchestra called Four String Orchestra. Yeah.
Great, thank you all very much. So to kick things off, and one of the reasons we wanted to do this panel in this format and at this time is obviously with COVID-19, everything's very challenging and especially scary, I think, if you're a graduating senior. But so to kick things off, if you guys could each just offer maybe like some words of encouragement and sort of your perspective or advice for students in terms of moving through these next couple months.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of words of advice during such kind of an unprecedented time, I think first thing is just understand that you have a network and use it, both in terms of not only your Rochester alum, but people you've kind of met over the course of both your professional and academic experience in undergrad. And I think that, typically speaking, even in a world that isn't like this, we say, use your connections. But I think especially in this situation, it's a really, really great way to get a leg up in the hiring process. So that'd be my first piece of advice.
Another thing that I think could be incredibly useful, I don't know how many of you know about or are part of the Melior Collective, but I was part of setting up one of the events pages for the soccer team, and that's been incredibly useful for us. And there's a ton of other pages on there. I believe there might be a business page on there. Correct me if I'm incorrect on that, Hillary or
I think there is, yeah.
Yeah. So using those pages can be incredibly useful. The map feature and everything, if you guys are looking for jobs, looking to reach out and network with alums in your area, that can be really useful. It's, for those of you that haven't seen it, it's like a LinkedIn for Rochester students only. And you can make pretty genuine connections on there just by having gone through some of the same experiences. People are always happy to help if you reach out. So I'd recommend using that during this time when you can't get out and actually see people face to face.
Yeah, just to add on to that same sort of sentiment of using your network, but also using the awesome business advisors. I mean, that's how I found the right network to tap into. I just had an idea of an industry I wanted to go into, and then sort of brought that open-ended question to the business advisors, and they were able to give me Rochester Alumni, and that was a great platform for me to launch off to into like knowing even where to network. So I'd say use the business advisors too for the networking efforts.
Right. I think for me, I utilize a lot of LinkedIn. I because I did grad school USC, so I really used the LinkedIn to reach out to a lot of alumni, and then did a lot of informational interview, talk about different possible ways, and I keep in touch with my professor who are very connected in the industry. So I'm in the music industry, so unfortunately, right now, a lot of things got shut down. It's kind of different with everybody else, but you know, the streaming side are going as good as it is, and besides that, I would just use this time to reach out to my friends, any friends, you know, not even just check in with them, you know, during this pandemic, and then you build genuine relationship, not just, you know, go straight forward, ask for a job, but just, you know, build a relationship with people. And then you never know down the road who might be helpful hand, but they'll all remember you that you're trying to build this genuine relationships, not just, you know, ask for something from them directly. Yeah.
Thank you all. That's all great advice. So if we go back a little bit, what made each of you decide to choose the business major?
Yeah, I think Rochester obviously has the flexibility just with the cluster system to really explore a lot of different things. And I think the business major is just very practical. And that was part of the reason that I was drawn to it, is if you're somebody that you're not totally sure where you want to wind up and you have a lot of different interests, the great news is that business kind of meshes across all of those. So for me personally, in my experience, in one of my clusters, I took a public health class, and that was how I ended up taking on my second major. And even though it was a very different major from the business major, there was still this kind of crossover between the two. So I think the great thing about being a business major is that no matter what realm or industry you go into, what you're learning right now is going to be applicable there. And I found that doing a career switch, going from more of the finance route in New York to more the tech route in Denver, you know, that skill set that I learned undergrad has definitely been applicable in both environments. So a very universal skill set.
Yeah, I think going off of what Kate was saying about how flexible the major is, that's what drew me to it initially. I knew I wanted to be in a business/finance oriented major. That was, you know, a pretty simple start. And I think a lot of times you hear, because Rochester is unique in that we call our major a business major since it's so broad. A lot of times when I went into interviews and yeah, I guess just going through the interview and internship process, people would ask, what is the business major? And business major at Rochester allows you to define it for yourself in large part. And each year that I was there, it grew, different concentrations came in. That was great to see. So that was the main reason I chose it, and it allowed me to have flexibility to pursue a minor as well.
Yeah, I kind of stumbled into the business major just because I started with a science degree with chemistry and realized I didn't want to be a doctor or chemist. So I needed something else to tack on there, but it ended up landing me like really where I want to be, in a science organization, but being able to impact from the business side. So for me, it was a nice pairing to another interest I have to sort of see it from a different lens. So I think at Rochester, having both the BS major, which is sort of more focused, knowing like Pete, if you want to start in finance or marketing or analytics, you can really dive into that early. But also for me, tagging on the BA in business and getting sort of that exposure to accounting, finance, and all those different areas of business to be able to look at my field of science and chemistry from a different lens. I think Rochester, with that flexibility of either path, is nice to sort of make business work for you.
Right. For me, I've always just know that I want to be. I came to Rochester for music. I got a certificate from Eastman, and it's specifically about the entrepreneurial side of music. And I think just in general that the business major gave me a flexibility to pursue many things. So besides taking lessons at Eastman, I created a major that basically combined the audio music engineering major and the music major in one, and then allows me to do the business side of thing with a business degree. So I did a lot of stuff in Rochester, which I'm very thankful for the entire curriculum that give you the freedom to pave your own path. And a lot of the skills that I learned in the business world, in the business major, it transformed into the music world really well. And just from on forward, I want to get more of the business and tech side of music, even though I still perform, still play, but I like that to get involved more in that field. And the business degree definitely comes in handy. Yeah.
Great, thank you all again. So in terms of your coursework while you were at Rochester, if you could tell everybody, I guess, what was your favorite course, and this doesn't have to be a business course, and then if it's a different course than that, what is the course that had sort of the biggest impact on your thinking after you left?
Yeah, I think hands down for me, it was Eco 207 with Rizzo. That was kind of, it was really impactful in two ways. The first of which is, I think that class teaches you to think in a way that's very different than you otherwise might, just kind of in your standard economics, like graphs and charts sense. And I think with that, when I think of like the business major and how that's been so applicable to kind of everything that I've done since Rochester from a professional standpoint, I always point to that class because I think it's not so much about being able to understand graphs and charts in a vacuum situation. It's how do you actually apply that to the real world and the decisions that you have to make as a professional in the real world. I think second thing is Rizzo was definitely one of my biggest connections, and I'd say per se cheerleaders when I was in school, and helped me a lot when I was trying to figure out what I was trying to do. And my first role that I got out of school was at a big health system out in the New York City area, and that was all through kind of connection and networking with Rizzo and some people that he knew out there. So I think it was valuable both in terms of the new context I'd learned to approach problems from, as well as an opportunity to learn, like you said, and like what Shredo was saying earlier, if you use or create relationships in a really organic way, you never know down the line when you can create value for that person, or they might be able to lend you a hand as well. So I think that class was super helpful for me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, piggybacking off of Kate, I think that was probably the class I got the most out of as well. However, I did enjoy the class a lot. I also uniquely enjoyed Marketing 201 was probably my favorite course that I took while in the business program. And I say uniquely because I don't use any of those concepts on a normal basis now. But I think the critical thinking that gave me and kind of the situations that were involved on a daily basis in that class were really good. And another thing that I thoroughly enjoyed from that class is the professor would he would make us read like on every Monday like a business article of the week or something along those lines. So he gave us kind of an introduction into the business world that is going on around us every day and making sure we're keeping up with current events and things along those lines.
Yeah, I think mine was, I'm not sure who the teacher is now, but Economics of Organization with Barry Gilbert. That was sort of an introduction to case studies for me in business. I had taken a lot of finance and economics, sort of like Kate said, graphs and charts, and not really understanding the applicability to the real world. But that was really the first instance of seeing sort of everything come together a little bit. With he would always introduce new case studies, interesting instances. And that was sort of when I realized I really wanted to be in a business function because of the complexities and how interesting it was. But not to be a brown noser, but also the pricing course I took with Rick senior year, just mainly because I also sort of spilled right into a pricing function first out of school, so it was very relevant to take that my senior year and then get right into a pricing class. So those two, I mean, I also love pricing because it is additionally sort of where you see everything come together with supply and demand, all of that good business coursework. So I'll stop brown nosing there.
All right. My favorite course in the music degree, sorry, in the business department is the Market 10203 with John Scoff. And I remember he was just come off as a new faculty in the business department, and he had years of experiences in advertising. So what I like about his class was he just let us make presentation. I like make presentation and really use, data or whatever to pitch the case or the business. And that comes in handy to me, the kind of practice I got. I get to pitch my artists to some of the biggest A&R in the world. I right now in LA, I pitched an artist to Mike Karen. He wrote songs for Beyonce, and I'm just all this business skill in terms of using in the presentation. I just bought it in just into day-to-day life and in the networking, in pitching my artists, and that's good. Another thing I really enjoy is just my time at Eastman in general. I was taking like drum lessons with some grad students, and I think it was the year after graduate, 2019. Yes, there was a legendary drummer, Steve Gadd. He's a Eastman alumni. He got a Grammy, so I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you all again. In terms of internships, if we could just go around, did you do an internship? And what was the most valuable part of that internship, if you did one?
Yeah, I did a couple. I think my most valuable one was with Northwell Health out in New York. So Northwell has a program called the Management Associate Program. And it's basically a feeder, or the internship is basically a feeder for that program. And the goal is to essentially have it as kind of a fast track to getting into the management side of finance and operations within Northwell. And it was an 8-week internship. And I think a couple of things that were really valuable from that is first being exposed to New York. I am glad to be in Denver now. New York was not the right fit for me in any way, but I also think that if you do have the opportunity to work in New York or it's something that you're interested in doing, that's a city that will really give you a very particular set of skills so that you can thrive, I truly think, in just about any professional environment. It's a very unique environment to work in. And I think the second thing was just getting exposure, especially in kind of a more rotational program. We were rotating in finance, operations, patient experience, and quality of patient care, all within a hospital setting. And I think being in a rotational program like that helped me kind of realize where do I actually find that my skills are the most applicable? And even if they're not the most applicable, where do I actually enjoy working the most? And even though I left that hospital and provider setting and now on the tech side, I'm still in an operational role because that was what I had enjoyed the most from that internship. So I know it's kind of a cliche, but getting to know what you like versus what you don't like, but then actually taking that and going after the part that you do like is super important. So I think internships are good both environmentally and then also substantively.
Yeah, so for me, I had kind of similar experiences to Kate, in that my internships taught me a lot about what not to do and what to do in those circumstances, and you learn very quick what not to do specifically. But I currently am working where I interned for 2 summers after my sophomore and junior year. So my first summer, I had about 4 weeks with them, and the second 10. And after that, received an offer, knew I was going to come back. So that was really nice, just getting to be acclimated with all of my coworkers and knowing the setting I was going into with my first job. But definitely that first summer, it was a lot of just doing things that aren't asked of you, doing extra things, going above and beyond to really prove your worth. And I would always suggest, like, my best piece of advice, I think, for those going into your first internship is ask a ton of questions, be engaged, always just try and go above and beyond, because that's always received well. And certainly don't be that annoying person that's asking way too many questions. But show interest and try and bring something special that that you can do over somebody else who's just going through the day-to-day roles. So yeah, that was incredibly useful for me in my job today, because it's the same thing I was doing when I was interning. So it just got my foot in the door, and taught me the ins and outs of business on a daily basis.
Yeah, I agree with Pete and Kate. Internships are an extremely valuable exposure to the real world. And my experience is I interned in a business development role with a sports management company. And then prior to that, I did data analytics at Strong Memorial. So my lesson going into my senior spring is what I thought was completely unrelated. I was able to sort of spin a story and bring that to my interview process. So if you're a graduating senior and you have varied experience from your previous summers, I think that there's always something there, always something applicable, either leadership experience or public speaking or whatever it may be. You can always draw on past experiences. So even if it's not an exact fit, if you, like what Kate said, if you tried something, you didn't like it, and now you want to pivot into a completely new industry going into your first job, don't be discouraged. There's always going to be ways to use your experience as even a growing experience. But yeah, I would just say don't be afraid to call on those what may seem unapplicable experiences, because there's value in what you've done with your previous summers.
Is very, very important. And essentially you needed to do internship to figure out to figure out what you don't want to do. So I have a really good story about this. The summer before my senior year, I got an internship to work at Hans Zimmer studio in LA. So that's where I first get exposed to Los Angeles, and that seems to be a dream internship. To able to look at what the Hans Zimmer studio looks like, which is very cool. I got into the room that he composed, and I got the films that he composed. He had the posters in the hallways. Dark Knight is my favorite movie, so he have all three of them on the wall. That was very cool. But I get to see up close what is the life of a film composer looks like. So it's like you work 8 to 12 hours a day, and you stay indoor all the time composing, making music, and you barely go out, and it's a lot of stress. And as just during the internship, I got exposed to many other people. And in the same summer, there was a documentary comes out called Score. It's a documentary of a film scoring. And after I went to see the premiere in Santa Monica, and then there was a speaker panel afterwards. One of them is Warren Tyler. He's the composer for Fast and Furious and Iron Man. And after the panel starts, they were just talking outside, and I was able to introduce myself. So the intern was Hans Zimmer, and he liked us, and he just talked about his own story. And he says, I think it was a year, I think he was composed for Fast and Furious, and then 2 weeks before the premiere, his hard drive burned out. So all the music he composed was gone 2 weeks before the films about to launch worldwide. And he literally just sleep in the studio for 2 weeks, to make the back happen. That's a lot of stress, but so me personally, I like to, perform live, and, Hans Zimmer was cool. He's a composer. He composed half the year, performed half the year. But later on, figure out, to be somebody like him, you need 20 years of very successful career, score all the blockbuster films, and able to have audiences like worldwide. I just can't wait 20 years to have a live show. So I know that film scoring is not something I want to pursue. But I know it exposed me to many interesting people in Los Angeles. I find some the people that I intern with were USC students, and then they were showing shows, house shows at USC, and I really get involved in the music scene in Los Angeles, and I really like that scene. And I just know that after graduate, either work or school, I need to be back to Los Angeles as soon as possible, and that triggered me to apply to grad school USC, and very lucky I got in for their the inaugural class of this new programs, and I had a really wonderful experience at USC. Yes.
Great, thank you. So we did get a question specifically for Pete. Did you start retail trading in college for preparation for your career?
Interesting question. Yeah, a little bit. But it was nothing like what I do on a day-to-day basis now. So you can always prepare yourself, like doing little trades in Bitcoin or whatever. I was doing all the classic stuff, watching the Wolf of Wall Street, things like that. But that is nothing like what it's like on a day-to-day basis. Managing risk on a day-to-day basis, I trade futures contracts, and it's more so about always having a constant understanding of where price is, than those big blockbuster days that you see in the movies and everything like that. But yeah, I had bits and pieces of experience, but nothing crazy. Like I said, that first summer was really instrumental in me getting a grasp on how to trade, what it looked like on a day-to-day basis, and the constant spiel that people get in their first trading internship is that you never know what it's like until you step foot on the trading floor. So I think that's highly true, and you can prepare yourself as much as possible, but you need to have that hands-on experience to really get a good grip of it.
Great, thank you. What's one thing you wished you would have done differently when you were at the U of R?
Oh, loaded question. What's one thing I wish I'd done differently? I think for me, I've always been one of those people that I like pick this thing that I want to do, and then I make a roadmap of exactly how I'm going to get there, and I put the blinders on sometimes, and I don't look at like all the other things that are around me as I do that. So Northwell is a perfect example of that. I found that internship by talking to Professor Rizzo when I was 18 or 19. And I made it my undergraduate college mission to get this internship at Northwell because I just wanted it so bad. And because of it, I was still applied to a lot of other internships, but I really would say I put all my eggs in one basket. And I'm very lucky that it worked out the way it did. I got the internship. I got the offer I dreamed of at the end of the internship, and I took on that role. And when I got to Northwell, I think it was like 6 months into it, I was just like, oh my gosh, I thought I wanted this, and I'd made this beautiful image of what it was in my mind. And those things started to not match anymore. The reality wasn't matching kind of that image that I'd had. But the good news with that is because of it, even though I wasn't actively looking for other things after I had accepted a role with Northwell, I had remembered one of my friends at school had gone to a career fair at Rochester. I had interviewed with this really cool company called Ombra Health, and I remember being the person that I am, I added it to my Excel doc of, if this doesn't work out, what's the next thing? So I kind of kept it in my back pocket, and I gave myself like the full year at Northwell to make sure it was or was not what I wanted, and was able to make the switch luckily to Ombra, which is where I am now. But one thing I wish I had done, and I wouldn't change the path that I came down, because I think I really learned a lot that I didn't anticipate, kind of outside of a professional sense, just being in New York. But I wish that I had put, rather than all my eggs in one basket, I had tried a couple of different things or opened my eyes to a couple of other opportunities, rather than trying to decide the next 10 years of my life when I was under the age of 20. So if you're one of those people that you're a big planner, and especially situations that you're in or that are like this, that we're all in right now, can put a huge hiccup in a lot of plans. sometimes that happens for a reason. So don't stress about things from that standpoint, and don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like, kind of open your eyes to the other opportunities that are out there, and you can do that by using your network, kind of what we were talking about before, learning about what those opportunities are.
Yeah, so for me, once again, pretty similar to Kate. I wish I would have expanded my horizons a little bit more, taken some classes at U of R that were outside of my comfort zone, and just to get a little bit more exposure, because I kind of was a very big planner on in terms of my path. And once I got the internship sophomore year, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I based my whole curriculum kind of around that going forward. Graduated a semester early so I could start earlier. Probably regret that, but yeah, I would say don't be so stuck in your ways. Enjoy your time in college, and really use your full 4 years to get exposure to things you might not do on a normal basis, and you might not think matters on a normal basis, because like I said, my favorite course was marketing, and I don't use any of those skills and haven't in 3 years. But the little things that you garner from those courses that are outside of your comfort zone a little bit, they give you something extra, that you might not get from just sticking to a really structured path with one goal in mind.
Yeah, I don't think this is new. It's probably just a different flavor of what both Kate and Pete said. But I feel like in college, I had a lot of like what I should be doing and what I have to do stuck in my head. And then there was also, you're getting broad exposure to things that are so exciting and interesting, but you sort of like keep the what you should and have to do's. But I think that that's sort of like isn't real, and like getting a certain GPA or getting certain credentials, like in the grand scheme of things, so much of it once you exit U of R isn't worth it. And some of it is like, I wish I took more time to take that marketing class, or I wish I actually like took the extra time to join a club or go to that mixer. But it was you know, it's just not getting too stuck in your head, because you're in college and it's a really great time to be that age. So enjoy it, and take advantage of the U of R, because you have such broad exposure to such awesome coursework and people. So just enjoy it for a bumper sticker ending.
Right. My perspective could be very different because I'm international. So I'm from China, and things are very different. I mean, I didn't even visit Rochester before I chose the school. So, you know, when the snow hit, it just, it was a new experience for me for sure. But I wish I've done a lot of things. I think I've experienced a lot more about Rochester and a lot of other international students. And certainly I have done spending many times at music school, which was one of the best music school, and very, you know, talented, intelligent people. I wish, one thing I wish, I guess, just because I'm the only international students in this group chat, I'm probably just going to speak with international students, just trying to get out. I want to get out sooner, just to get exposed to, you know, more of the university as a whole, experience anything, you know. Like, I, in the beginning, I was, oh, I'm interested in this clubs or meeting, but then I don't see anybody international with me, and I would feel, you know, like deterred not go at the beginning. But then, and then it's just like, I just don't really, I just go, you know. And that exposed me to many different experiences that I wouldn't have had, you know, if I just, you know, like just chose the traditional path. And I don't, I mean, I really enjoy this kind of adventure sense. And that's what is basically leads me to get an internship at Hans Zimmer studio, because there was alumni coming in, speak about it. His name is Brandon Campbell. He was alumni, graduated in 2010. He's a soccer player. He's like super tall. He's a goaltender for the soccer team, but he studied economics and composition. And he talked about his experiences in the studio. He worked with Ramin Djawadi, the guy who composed for Game of Thrones and the Westworld. And it just blew my mind. Like, how can you be, a football player, soccer players, but also like get into the economics and also do music? I was exposed to so many possibility of life because I went to that event by myself. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna have a very different path. And I'm very happy that I chose. I've paid my path. I'm very happy about it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So if some of our students that are on this webinar wanted to be in the position you're in right now, what advice would you give them?
I think if someone wanted to, I guess, be in my position right now, I think it's just a level of open-mindedness of where you're going to be or where you want to be. So I work in a company, just to give you a little background, as I said, it's called Umbra Health. We deal with like a very niche part of healthcare, and it's for imaging storage. And in terms of imaging storage, it's a piece of healthcare on the provider side that's very archaic right now, and we work to move something that would otherwise be a very manual process and hardware-related process into the cloud in a more software format. So definitely very niche. No one comes out of school saying, "Hey, I want to work in JICOM imaging." Never heard anyone say that in my life. I think it's a level of openness of, I don't know what that is, but like this is a sector and this is an industry that I'm interested in. So why don't I explore these little things that I might not otherwise. And again, I think in this situation, I know that people are a little bit probably intimidated by the job market right now, but I think also look at it as an opportunity to try something that you might not otherwise have. And I think one of the biggest piece of advice that someone gave me, and I think this is ultimately how I jumped into this role too, someone told me, it was actually a Rochester alum that I'd reached out to, because I was like, I want to get into the tech side of things, but I don't totally know how to do it. And he said to me, to be honest, Kate, any decision career-wise that you make before the age of 30, it's not going to impact where you ultimately end up. It's just going to change the way that you get there. So I kind of took that as take risks, go for it, try something that you don't know a lot about and be excited about becoming an expert. I think if you're going to be in kind of a niche kind of tech role, that what we do here is incredibly applicable across a lot of different industries, as well as obviously healthcare specifically. But I think it's being open to a level of risk. And I think with that comes a certain level of tenacity. When you take on risk is not easy. And usually what's on the other side of risk isn't easy either. So be willing to tackle those challenges and be that person that nothing is below you. I think that's a big, big thing that I've seen people come in with that don't do as well at my company is you come in and you have this expectation that your company owes you something outside of kind of what you signed in a contract, when you accepted the job, or because you've been here 6 months, you shouldn't have to do this anymore. We're kind of a startup environment. So it's sometimes everybody goes kind of pedal to the metal no matter what. I guess kind of tier that piece of work would typically fall under. So I think especially in tech environments and startup environments, and I specifically with my company, willingness to take on risk and a willingness to be that person that'll take on things that you may sometimes feel like are a little bit below you. They always it all comes out in the wash.
So for me, I think on a day-to-day basis, the most important advice that I got when starting in a trading role was knowing how to fail. So knowing you are going to fail constantly and you're going to be wrong a lot, and being okay with that and moving on quickly. The people that don't make it or that I've seen crash and burn at my company have been those who are stuck in their ways and think they're always right and are confused why things aren't going to plan, why things aren't mathematically trading how they theoretically should be. And that was a tough change for me because I am pretty stuck in my ways and always do think I'm right. But that was the best thing that could have happened to me is just, you fail once, you get right back up. And I think that's applicable to pretty much every job. Is you're going to have failures along the way, and just not being hard-headed, getting over it, moving on to the next thing, and just really trying to make the best out of any situation. So that's the best advice I ever got, was just be ready to fail and be prepared to succeed the next time.
I would say for me, it's don't shy away from asking questions. I think coming in as an entry level person into any organization, you kind of have the advantage of knowing nothing, and you're not going to know anything because you've never been in this position before. And you can kind of come at it of, I'm learning for the first time, be humble about it and be grateful for people's time who answer your questions. And I've found in my role, I started as a market analyst solely because I was like, analyst sounds like a position that you do as a first job. I didn't know what that meant, and started in heavy data analytics and pricing strategy. And through asking questions I was interested in, I've sort of carved what my next role would be, because my leadership paid attention to what I'm interested in, and your intention and effort goes towards what you're interested in. And leadership is aware of that and wants an engaged, motivated employee. So I would always say, ask the questions, be strategic about it. Like if you're in a meeting with a lot of leadership and there's a business flow, you'll get used to just letting it flow and then following up correctly with questions, and you'll find your own balance. But I would say definitely ask the questions. Never shy away from being the dumbest person in the room, because you're new. I mean, you're not going to know anything starting, and just being comfortable with that, it will really benefit your career, because people look for that curiosity and interest, and you'll end up being rewarded for it.
Similar to everyone just said, but just in my industry, it's just all about taking risks, and particularly in the music industry, it's about who you know. And I spent a lot of time talking to very different people, and it's very fortunate I got into USC, and USC has a very different college. So I was in the music school, where right next to the film school, which is the best in the United States. And then there's dance school right across us, and then there's the I also take class at business school. I still continue my business route, take entrepreneurship class, and I love those classes. And there was this new academy that opened at USC. It's called Urban Young Academy. It's Dr. Dre opened academy for design. It's a very new place. I just going out there and see their presentation, what it's like, what the senior do their presentations on. So like you, again, I think it's applied to all different fields. You don't know if you want to do it until you tried it. So especially in the music industry, you just have to try different things early on, and then get a hands-on experiences, because the things you look on the paper, it doesn't translate to your real experiences would be like. So you really have to, whatever you think about it, just took risk. And I think just took risk in general. For somebody international student like me, it has been very benefit to me as a philosophy, and give me exposure to a lot of many things I wouldn't have otherwise experiences, just being stuck in my comfort zone. And take a risk. And now is probably the best time, because you have the least opportunity cost to change anything. A couple of years down the road, you might have a lot more things to taken care of. You wouldn't be able to take a risk as much as you can when you were younger. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you. So this might be our last question, but in something, I guess, a little more on the pleasure side. Any books, podcasts, TV shows, anything that you're excited about or would recommend?
Oh, I would say Tiger King, but let's see. So my favorite book, and I find that I always reread it in times when I'm like experiencing change, and it's kind of lame. But my favorite book is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And the reason for that is kind of one of the themes of the book is it's this concept of timshel, which is a Hebrew word, which more or less is you're able to manifest your own destiny. You might have this, set of cards put in front of you that have been dealt to you, but you choose how you use them and how you react to them. So I've definitely taken that with me, and kind of any trial and tribulation that I've had throughout the course of my life. And I think, again, right now is a great time to kind of have that mentality as well. Is okay, we've all been dealt like this very strange set of cards right now, and it's no one's ever had to figure out how to really use their own in this situation, but use it as an opportunity to maybe deal them in a way that you wouldn't normally. So I think that that's a really awesome book. It has a lot of beautiful nuances to it, both from if you have any kind of interest in like different religion knowledge, as well as just a really great story. It's definitely one that I would recommend, and I love rereading it during times like this. So.
Mine is way less inspirational than Kate's, but I would heavily recommend anybody involved in the business or finance world subscribe to the Morning Brew. It's a just daily email that gives you just very surface level information, written by started by two Michigan grads about, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, made for college students to give them a very basic, easy to read understanding of events going on in the business world or in the finance world. That was really good for me to just constantly be keeping up on what's going on. That's the large part of my job, is just knowing news that's going on all over the world that you would never think would affect certain little markets, but they do. So I think that's really important, just staying informed. And I read it 5 minutes every morning, and very simple thing.
Yeah, for me, my favorite book, it's a book called Paper Lion by someone named George Plimpton, and I like it because it's about football, and I don't care about football, but what's interesting about it is he's a journalist, and he signs up for the Detroit Lions, and he joins as a quarterback. And what's fascinating about it is he writes from a perspective of he's never experienced football before, and he's experiencing it all for the first time. And that sort of perspective is interesting, and it's sort of motivating to say you can throw yourself into anything and figure it out. So one I'd recommend, especially for some people going into the working world and you're going to be throwing yourself into something for the first time. It sort of just gives me the perspective of do it humbly, and you're going to learn fast, and to sort of trust your intellect and intuition.
Right. A book that I would recommend for anybody, especially the younger the better. It's called Atomic Habit by James Clear. It's basically a book teach you how to form habit. And I think, as I'm a big, I'm just big fan of anybody who's good at their job. So I moved to Los Angeles. One of the reasons for Kobe Bryant, and the way that he approached sports, and the habit that he put in training. I did a lot of research on him, and that his mindsets, which it could be applied to a lot of management, as a CEO of a company, or just an artist in general. So Atomic Habit is a book that teaches you how to form habit. And I think it was Aristotle said, "You're what you repeatedly do. Whatever you want to achieve in life, it's comes down to your habit." And another book I would recommend to anyone, it's called Principles by Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio he's the founder of Bridgewater, and I come across, I thought it was about investment in the beginning, which I'm also interested in, but the way that he described in the principle he used in make decision in life and work, it just applied to anybody in any fields, and I find it inspiring. It's some book that I really study and go back to it, and I just recommend everyone to read it and just get inspired. And he says, write down your own principles to for any decision making you make, and just come back to it and review how you make decisions. And that's a good book. Yes.
Great. Thank you all again. So I lied. We have time for more. So maybe quickly, give us an update. Where are you hoping to be in the next 1 to 5 years? What's next for each of you?
Oh man, learn my lesson. I'm gonna say I don't know, but I think next 1 to 5 years, definitely still in Colorado. For anybody that is interested in being in this area, definitely feel free to reach out. But I think part of it appeals to me from the running perspective and the hiking perspective, but also just kind of it's almost kind of like the polar opposite feel of New York. So kind of thing you're definitely reach out. But I'll definitely be out here, and I definitely will still be in healthcare somewhere. I think that was like a big thing for me was I think I always thought in healthcare you have to be in a hospital, but you can still take again like kind of that business skill set and bring it into other pieces. And I never ever thought I'd be somewhere in tech and somewhere in a very technical role in tech with no computer science background. So I think that what I've learned from that is I enjoy the puzzle. I enjoy having to troubleshoot. I enjoy having to create super convoluted workarounds and designing customer workflows with our software. And I think that I'll also definitely still be at a small company, even if it's not Ambra. Cool thing about Ambra is we're probably hopefully going to make sale or IPO in like the next 3 to 5 years. So we're kind of almost out of that startup phase. So a super, super cool time to be here. And I definitely want to stay at Ambra at least until that happens, if not further down the road. Obviously that picture changes a little bit at that point, but I love where I'm working right now and I love the place I am. So for right now, just kind of keep grinding where I am.
For me, I've been debating a little bit about potentially going back to business school and getting my MBA. Currently studying for the GMAT and thinking about that, see where that leads in the next few months. But like Kate said, like New York wears on you quite a bit. And it can get tiring. So you need a little change up every now and then. And I always planned on going back to business school. I'm really happy with what I'm doing right now. But it seems like a good time. So I'm thinking about that next 3 years after that, I guess. I would like to do something more finance tech oriented. I think, but who knows? Changes on a day-to-day basis. I've gone back and forth with myself even about taking the GMAT 15 times. So, just at the moment, keeping an open mind and seeing where things lay. And in 5 months from now, who knows? World changes like crazy on a daily basis nowadays. So.
Yeah, this question induces sweating for me, but I think I will also have gone back or be in my MBA at that point in 5 years. And it's interesting because I feel lucky enough to have a mentor within my organization that I can have conversations outside of my day-to-day work and just frame it of what I want with my career. And just recently, she's like, put it into a PowerPoint, plan it out. Even if it doesn't stick, then you're like putting your thoughts down. So in the process of that, which is a very challenging exercise, but I do think it's very worthwhile to put down all of your thoughts, because then you can kind of think critically of how they interact with each other. What is the highest priority? I have no idea where I'll be geographically, because there's some priorities that I put above where I am geographically, and you can only really think those things through when you have them written down. So something I'm working out right now, but I definitely think an MBA is in my future. So that's all I can say for now.
Right. For me, things, again, could be very different. I'm trying to working out this career that can allows me to travel between, Los Angeles and China. And, I'm an artist manager. The reason I chose is because it allows me to be both enhancing the creative and the business side. And currently I'm seeking for opportunity for companies like TikTok and Netflix and Hulu, and really being the intersection of music, business, and technologies. And I just wanted to keep learning on the jobs. And one thing my mentor told me, that just to trying to work for people that you admire, you respect, and just go after it. I think at least that works in my industry. Just trying to find the people and know about the industry. And I think, I just get my master's degree, so I don't think myself going to return back to school anywhere soon. But I do think that a couple years down the road, 5 years, it could be a position where I need to determine if I need to start a company or get my MBA. This is something maybe just interesting for all. Like, I was just come across as an interview with this producer called Sweet Beats, and he's the husband of Alicia Keys, and he's a successful producer and DJ. But later on, he got an MBA from Harvard because he said, because he's able to get a lot of deals, because of who he is. But whenever he comes to deals, the business side, people wouldn't take him seriously. So he's saying it's important for him to go back to get re-educated. So even though I had a business background, even though I'm in the music industry, I think, for the world that we are in today, people had to have access to all different kinds of educational resources. So you have to stay on top of that, just have to keep educating yourself. And think about the world, like 2007, 2009, we had the iPhone, and how the world has changed so much after iPhone is launched. This is less than 15 years ago. And this is 2020. We could be even on a faster track from now on. And that's why I'm, interested in learning more about data. I'm thinking about getting an online certificate while I was working, and just keep educating myself on everything. Yeah.
That's great. So that brings us to 3:30 here local time. To the panelists, thank you all very, very much. Congratulations. You all seem like you're doing absolutely great. And I know everybody in our team certainly appreciates you guys reconnecting and helping us out with this. So thank you to you all, and a big thank you to Aaron and Hillary for pulling this together in a fairly short time period. So everybody, please stay safe, and thank you all again. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
everyone.
Nice to see everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.